You probably saw this dish in the thumbnail and thought, what on earth am I looking at? A fillet at the centre of what looks like a toddler's finger painting with splashes of red, yellow, black and green scattered across the plate. At first glance, it might look a bit like nonsense. And I think that's a fair reaction too, because that was actually my reaction. When I first saw this plate, I honestly thought it couldn't be serious. I mean, it's a dish that could have been mistaken for a child's art project. Surely this isn't the work of a chef at the top of his craft. So who on earth plated it, and why? Well, I'll get to that very shortly. And yet, the more I looked at it, the more conversations I had with chefs on my podcast, chefs whose work I respected, the more I realised how much this plating had influenced them. So slowly, I changed my perspective. I started to see that what looked like random splashes were actually deliberate design choices. Choices about colour, placement, shape and contrast. Choices made to grab attention and spark emotion, and even tell a story before you've taken a single mouthful. I began to see that great plating can not only look beautiful, but can create wonder and surprise too. Nothing in this dish is what it seems, and I'll go into this in more detail later too. Maybe you still see nothing but chaos on this plate, but stick with me to the end of this video and maybe, just maybe, you might start to see it the way that I do now. The chef behind this plate is Massimo Bottura, the heart and mind of Osteria Francescana in Modena, Italy. Consistently ranked as one of the best restaurants in the world, it's where Boturra uses food as a language to speak about culture, art and memory. Boturra takes art really seriously. He collects it, studies it, and lets it influence the way he cooks. He draws from artists like Damien Hirst, Jackson Pollock, and even jazz improvisations, turning the plate into a canvas, a sculpture, or even a visual poem. For him, the look of a dish isn't just an afterthought, it's part of the story. And nowhere is that clearer than in the dish we're talking about here. Get ready for it, it's called the beautiful psychedelic spin-painted veal, not flame grilled. What a mouthful. So what makes this plate design so revolutionary, and why does it have such an impact? In fine dining, plating is often about precision, order and control. This dish throws that rulebook out the window. It embraces chaos, but in a way that is deeply intentional, and for me, that takes courage. It also takes trust. Trust that the diner will see beyond the splatters and experience the dish as a whole, visually, emotionally and gastronomically. It's that leap of faith that makes this dish so special. Now, you might look at it and think, this is utterly ridiculous. It has nothing to do with me. High-end food like this can feel elitist, reserved only for the wealthy, and completely disconnected from the plates that you or I might see at the local pub. I thought the same at first. But here's the thing. Innovation always trickles down. Just as haute couture shapes the clothes on the high street, or Formula One pushes technologies that eventually end up in your Ford, creativity at the cutting edge of food eventually influences the everyday. So while you may never be served this exact dish, I bet you get to see more splashes, gels and swooshes on a plate in the last decade than ever before. And it's not just diners like me who are astounded by Massimo's designs. Some of the world's greatest chefs admit that they were shaped by his visions on the plate too. Just wait until you hear what Grant Achaz, chef of the 3-star Alina in Chicago, said about him. It's clear to see that this dish is wild, and yet it's meticulously designed. At first glance it looks chaotic, but if you study it more closely, you'll notice something surprising. Every single detail has a purpose. I go much deeper into this kind of thinking in my book, The Plating Gym. A couple of hundred copies are already out there in the world, and in the hands of both professional chefs and home cooks who want to sharpen their plating. But if you want something you can use straight away, grab my free Plate Like a Pro checklist, a simple one-page guide to help you get started with better presentations today. Links to both are in the bio. And one of the easiest places to start with your design is colour. Boturra treats the plate like a canvas, using pure saturated colour. Beetroot red, carrot orange, rocket or arugula green, yellow puree and glossy reductions. The white plate becomes negative space, allowing those colours to explode without collapsing into mud. Notice how the dark wine jus and the black ash crust act as contrast anchors. Without them, the palate risks being childlike. With them, it gains depth and sophistication. The beef sits almost dead centre, while the sauce radiates outwards like a spin art machine. On the surface, it looks chaotic, but there's intent there. The movement echoes Damien Hirst's spin paintings. Unlike a stacked or linear arrangement, this is closer to what I would call a dispersed layout, where energy spreads across the plate with no single rigid structure. The protein becomes the still point in the storm, the element around which the chaos orbits. Circular motion dominates. The splashes and streaks create the illusion that the plate is spinning. This sense of captured movement makes the dish feel alive, as though you caught it mid-action. The beef can seem almost lost at first, but Boturra has a trick up his sleeve. The blackened ash crust frames the protein, separating it from the sauce splashes. And the cut surface of the meat, the rosy pink against the black crust, becomes a natural focus point. That block of solid colour contrasts the variety around it, anchoring the eye. So while your gaze darts across the splashes, it always returns to the beef, the true star of the dish. Compulsion is about pulling the diner in. Here, Bottura uses contradiction as the hook. It looks burnt, but it isn't. It looks like a mess, but it's deliberate. It's called veal, but it isn't. These playful paradoxes keep the diner's curiosity alive, both visually and conceptually. The result is a plate that's meant to be confrontational. It asks you to look closer, wonder whether it's food or art, and then discover that it's both. The surprises aren't just visual, they're built into the cooking too. For me, this dish is a perfect example of why chefs should think of their creations in terms of both taste and as a visual experience. When those two elements are executed seamlessly, as they are here, it creates a sense of wonder for the diner. But the biggest surprise, nothing is what it claims to be. For example, despite being called veal, the dish is actually a beef tenderloin, marinated in milk to mimic the delicate texture of veal, while delivering a much deeper, more intense flavour. The exterior isn't from grill at all. It's an ash crust and then covered with the smoked olive oil. The protein has never even been touched by a flame. And while the sauce may look chaotic, it's anything but. Each puree, the beetroot red, the carrot orange, the rocket green, the glossy wine jus, is measured with precision so that the flavour profile stays consistent, no matter who's splattering all over the plate. Every diner gets the same balance of intensity and freshness, even though no two plates will ever look the same. And that's the genius of this design. It looks like chaos, but it's controlled chaos. A performance of spontaneity rehearsed to perfection. With this dish, Bottura shifted the conversation. Plating was no longer secondary. It became an integral part of the message, a place where design and story came alive. One of the clearest examples is Grant Achaz, chef of Chicago's Next and Alina, who has spoken openly about Bottura's impact on his own philosophy. He was like, I want you to take that philosophy, the one we have with the Parmigiano, and recreate it in your own way. Retranslate it into the American Midwest, Achaz recalled. I want 2 fingerprints on every dish, yours and mine, Bottura told him, advice that became a blueprint for Achaz's work, pushing him to reinterpret tradition through flavour, texture and visual narrative rather than just copy it. Closer to home, Carmine Lopez, who trained under Boturra, who became head chef of Gucci in Florence, said that working with him reshaped how she thinks about aesthetics and story on the plate. For her, Boturra demonstrated that visuals aren't just garnish or afterthoughts. They're all part of the flavour experience itself. And it doesn't stop with Michelin-starred chefs. What was once radical has now become part of the mainstream curriculum. Culinary schools that once taught plating as simply symmetry and garnish now use Bottura's work as a case study in creativity, negative space and storytelling. Students who will probably never step foot in Bottura's restaurant are still taught to see plating as a design challenge, not just a final step. And that's the ripple effect from Bottura's influence. From world-famous restaurants to training kitchens, his audacious videos have moved from shocking to standard, shaping how an entire generation of chefs approach the plate. It's often hard to recognise the importance of a design shift in the moment. I've been photographing and working with chefs and restaurants for over a decade before I had started this channel. And even then I didn't fully get it. When I first saw this dish, it just looked utter madness. Now I see it as a turning point for me. Over time, through conversations with other chefs, through looking more closely at the design choices, and through exploring what plating really means, I've come to understand how radical and influential Massimo was. And it just goes to prove the old saying that to get better at anything, surround yourself with people who know more than you do. It's changed how I view the discipline of plate design altogether. And if you weren't convinced at the start of this video, but you've made it this far, I hope I've persuaded you of its importance too. Because for me, Massimo Bottura has become a hero. Not for how his food tastes, but for how it looks. And by the way, there's still time to enter my competition to win a copy of the Plating Gym. Just answer this question in the comments. If you won the book, what's the first dish you put through the Plating Gym process? You'll find details in the pinned comments. Not long to go now, so good luck. I can't wait to read your answers. Now, if you want to see how to use design theory to break down more plates of food, click on the playlist here and I'll see you over there.